What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the PFF NFL show. Trevor Sikkema, Dalton Wasserman here with you guys on a Labor Day. And like Dalton said right before we hit record, right before we went live, we're laboring. We're laboring out here, giving you guys the 2025 season predictions here as it is week one of the NFL. September 1st. Dalton, we made it, my friend. I'm so excited for this episode. Getting to talk about what we think is going to happen throughout the 2025 season. We're going to give you every single division winner. We're not going to go game by game, but we'll tell you who we think is going to win every single division, what the playoff picture is going to look like. We're going to go through every round, the wild card round, the divisional round, tell you who is going to eventually meet for the Super Bowl, and of course, make our Super Bowl picks as well. At the end of the show, we'll also give you our yearly awards. MVP, we'll do Offensive and Defensive Rookie of the Year, Offensive and Defensive Player of the Year. We'll give you Comeback Player of the Year, Coach of the Year, all of that great stuff. We would love to hear from you guys throughout the show. For those of you that are joining us in the chat live, salute to you. We love you, appreciate you. Glad to have you here on the show. Dalton, how you doing, my friend?
Fantastic. We are good after an absolutely delirious week one of college football. That's not even over yet because we get Bill Belichick and his North Carolina Tar Heels on Monday Night Football tonight. That's fitting. But Trevor, we're only 3 days away from the season. We got to get these predictions. And I was thinking last week, I was like, man, we haven't even gone over this. Who's going to be right? Who's going to be more right and wrong this year between the two of us? That's really the most important part of this show.
That's very true. That is very true. I mean, we don't have to debate. Obviously, I'm going to be more right about it, but you could be louder about it if you want.
That I'm going to do for sure.
Right. Like that's it. You could be louder about it. I'll be the more correct one, and we'll talk about it here on the show. Hey, it's week one of the NFL season, so of course, there has quite literally never been a better time to get a PFF Plus subscription. It can help you manage your fantasy teams throughout the entire season. Maybe you got a couple of drafts that you're trying to squeeze in before that Thursday night football game. It can help you draft as well. Throughout the season, you can keep tabs on your favorite team. You can keep tabs on who your favorite teams are playing. Obviously, if you're into betting, it's really good for that. We can tell you the brand new player prop tool that we have is fantastic. You can see which players that we think have an edge, depending on the lines that you could see basically around all of the sports books. And of course, when we get into draft season, team building season, it's great for that as well. You guys can see all the scouting reports and everything, which, by the way, I will shout out right now. If you go use the mock draft simulator, if you're a true draft sicko, you're going to be able to pick between 449 players. That's what we got right now over in the MDS. A lot of upperclassmen, a lot of guys ranked there to make sure that you guys can dip into draft season whenever you want. But if you don't have a PFF sub, now's a great time to get one. Subscribe.pff.com. Dalton, we got a lot of things to cover in the show, so let's just get right to it. I'll start with the AFC. So we'll go at AFC division by division. You tell me who's going to win those four divisions in the AFC. Say a couple of words on those teams, and then, of course, I'll reveal mine, and we can have a little bit of a conversation about what we think about that conference. What do you got, my friend?
Yeah, absolutely. The AFC, this is going to sound awfully familiar to a lot of people out there because I think especially three of them, I feel still pretty sure that these teams are defending their titles. Starting the East with the Buffalo Bills, I think as long as they have Josh Allen, they're the prohibitive favorite in this division. They've won it 5 times in a row now. New England's getting better. I like the direction they're going in. The Jets are in a rebuild. I don't love where Miami's at in this division right now. So I think unless something were to happen to Josh Allen and the Bills fell into that 8-9 win territory or even less than that in the case of a significant injury, I think the Bills are clearly the favorite in the AFC East still. The North is more competitive, but I still trust the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, John Harbaugh. It's a really good defense, especially the way they figured out this secondary the second half last year. So I'm taking Baltimore in the North. AFC South, I'm going to stick with the Houston Texans. This is the one I'm the least sure on of the four of them because I do think this offensive line is very, very concerning, and there's a lot of matchups this year where I worry about the pass protection, including even this week's game against the Rams. So I would say I have the Texans. I do think they're still the most talented team. Love C.J. Stroud and the receivers. I love their pass defense. It's just the offensive line's a concern. I do see a possibility where the door is open there, and then I just can't pick against the Chiefs out west. Look, they still went 15-2 last year with a lot of difficulties on offense. Yes, they don't have Rashee Rice for the first 6 games of this year, but I do think the offense is going to look a little more cohesive. You get a healthy Isaiah Pacheco. You still have Steve Spagnuolo and a great defense. So I'm still taking the Chiefs out west, even though that's a really competitive division too.
Yeah, I was wondering when you sort of started that conversation, which team you were actually going to talk about as the one that you weren't super confident with. And that's because we agree on most of these teams. We disagree on one of them. And even though I think the Chiefs are going to be incredibly competitive and I still think that they are going to make the playoffs, I actually think the door is certainly is pretty open for this division. I know that might be sacrilegious to say. Anybody out there, yourself included, that says I am going to pick the Chiefs until they don't win the division, I totally understand. But I love what the Broncos are doing, man. And that brings up the 4 division winners that I have. We see it the same. I think the Baltimore Ravens are the best team in the AFC North. It's obviously going to be a competitive division, as the AFC North always is, but I still see them as the best team in that division, and I think they're going to be making a pretty deep playoff run. We'll get to that in a little bit. The Bills, it should be their division, right? I think that Miami, if they're fully healthy, I think that they're certainly going to be competitive throughout the entire season, and I think that they could be a playoff game. I didn't predict them to be a playoff game, but I think that is well within the cards. I think the Patriots with Mike Vrabel are going to be competitive as well. Again, not quite a playoff team this year. All that to say, I do still think that it is the Buffalo Bills division to lose. I am a big Houston Texans fan. Now, that's not to say that I don't think the Colts could be a little bit spicy here, even with some unknown at quarterback. I still like Shane Steichen as a head coach. And, of course, I think that the Jags are going to be a dangerous team all season long. I don't know if they'll have that consistency, though. I think the Jags are going to be one of those teams that you look at their schedule or you look at their record at the end of the year, and you're going to be able to point out a couple of really good football teams that the Jags beat. I'm just not super convinced year one of Liam Cohen that they're going to have that consistency moving forward. And instead, I just have so much faith in what DeMeco Ryans is building with the Houston Texans. I think that's going to be one of the best defenses in the NFL. I love the pass-catching weapons that they have. Certainly, it's a little bit of an unknown with Joe Mixon and what he is going to be this season, but I have so much faith in C.J. Stroud. The offensive line, you mentioned, that is worrisome for me. But they looked better even in the preseason. Some of those depth players looked better than I thought that they were going to. So at least I feel a little bit better coming out of the preseason for their biggest area of concern. And with that, to me, there's so much to believe in with this Texans team. And then when it comes to the AFC West, yes, the Chiefs will still be incredibly competitive. Yes, they're going to be one of the better football teams in the league this year, especially in one-score situations. I just think they're going to be in a lot of one-score situations. And last year, that was the case as well, with you talking about them taking a little bit of a step back from the world beaters they had been in the previous 2 seasons. But, man, it just felt like the ball bounced their way a lot last year. And I just think that it's going to even out a little bit more with them. Can they win this division? Of course they can. But I think it's going to be very, very close with them. I will throw the Chargers in there as well. I do not think the Raiders are to be slept on in this division, and I simply think that the rest of the division getting a lot better around the Chiefs, as well as you mentioned, Rashee Rice, a big part of somebody who's going to keep their offense on schedule, not being with them for the first 6 weeks of the season, maybe just saying that they're going to regress to the mean a little bit in some of those one-score games. It's going to open the door. I think that Bo Nix, even from what we just saw this preseason, is going to be a very confident football player in year 2 with Sean Payton. I'm excited to see what Sean Payton does with that offense now with Nix. Maybe the training wheels are off, as they say here in year 2. I feel better about the receiving core around them. If they get the running back room right, we know that they might have the best defense in the NFL behind him on the other side of the ball. So love what they did on defense. If Nix is that next step confident quarterback going into the season, I already have a lot of faith in who Sean Payton is as a head coach. So I will say the Denver Broncos actually come out on top of this division. So thoughts there of any of the teams. My love for the Houston Texans, picking the Denver Broncos to sort of upset and be the new kings of the AFC West. Any thoughts there?
I think I'll start in the South again with the Texans. I think if they can get, I believe if they can get to 10 wins or 11, that they'll end up being the division winner, because I think they're probably the only team capable of getting more than 10. It's the moment where if they get dragged down to 9 and 8, and all of a sudden you're talking tiebreakers or head-to-head things like that I do get worried about. And again, it's going to be a lot of matchups and a lot of weeks in preview and on the grade release show this year where we talk about just the Texans' offensive line. What did they do this week, right? And then as far as out west goes, if I was going to pick another one other than the Chiefs, I'm with you with Denver. I don't like the Rashawn Slater injury for the Chargers. I think they're still building on that side of the ball. The offensive line is still going to be a question mark, right? You've got Joe Alt moving to the left side, which I feel good about, but now the right tackle situation isn't as good as it was before, and they got a lot of young receivers. I trust that team as far as playing functional football still, but I do think Denver's a little bit better than them right now. If I was going to pick another one, it would be the Broncos, but I still couldn't go against Kansas City.
Yeah, and again, like I said, like I definitely get it, and I think it's Drake in the chat who's saying that the Raiders are going to be scrappy. I agree, man. I think that the product of me taking the Broncos is not just to sort of praise where the Broncos are as a team for a team building perspective and having a head coach that I know has that experience to really take this team to the next level and potentially win that division. And that's a theme that you're going to see throughout my picks here on this show is I'm betting on coaching. Coaching is such an important part of all of this. I know some people might say it's a duh, but there are even some teams on the other side of things. Maybe, okay, I'm praising this team for their head coaches or offensive and defensive coordinators. I might be a little bit skeptical of some of these teams who were really good last year who might be losing some coaches. The Detroit Lions are one of them. We're going to get to sort of what I think about the Detroit Lions this upcoming season. But I just have so much faith in who Sean Payton is as a head coach that I've got to lean into one of the more talented rosters in the NFL. They're fantastic up front on defense. I love their secondary with the reigning defensive player of the year. I think their safety room got even better. Their linebacker room got even better with the free agent additions of Talanoa Hufanga and Drake Greenlaw. They have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. The pass catchers looked better this preseason. And like I said, it's just a matter, in my opinion, of do they have the right running backs on this team? Can they keep this offense on schedule? Can they stay more multiple? Can they stay as balanced as they want to on a week in and week out basis, depending on how much they want to take the ball out of Bo Nix's hands and how he looks? But to me, this is one of the better rosters in the NFL. So I'm a big fan of what the Broncos have built this offseason. I'm ready to say that they are absolutely in contention to win this division, even, like I said, as sacrilegious as it is to say that Kansas City might not win it with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. We're going to get to our playoff predictions here, but before that, who's the team that you didn't mention them yet, who you still think like, yeah, this is absolutely a team that could be a division winner or somebody who, even if they are a wild card pick, could make the most noise?
I look at the South being so wide open, and I know I've been in the minority on this opinion a lot, but I don't think the Colts are completely dysfunctional with Daniel Jones as their quarterback. I think he can run Shane Steichen's offense. We saw this 2 years ago. He finished the season 9-8 with Gardner Minshew starting most of the games. I do wonder who takes advantage in the AFC South. And the Colts, if Lou Anarumo has that defense looking decent, right, especially in pass defense, I need a second-year jump from Leatu Latu. I need the new acquisitions, Ward and Bynum, to play well in the secondary. But I think the Colts are loaded with weapons, and they have a good offensive line, and they can run the ball with Jonathan Taylor. I do think this is a situation. If I was going to pick the next team in the South, I would probably go with Indianapolis. And look, Daniel Jones is not flashy. I've defended the decision to make him the starting quarterback this entire time. We'll see how that goes week 1 against Miami, who is healthy, and they're going to be tougher when they're healthy, obviously, at the beginning of the season. So I do think I'm keeping a close eye on the Colts in the South. And it's funny because I don't even know necessarily what the AFC is loaded as it is. I don't think they'd be in the wild card race, but that division is by far the most open one to me, and that's the next team I would pick out there.
So let's move on to the NFC. Give me your 4 division winners that we have in the NFC. Talk a little bit about each of them, and then, of course, I'll give mine, and we can have a good conversation there because we do disagree a little bit here, once again, with the NFC.
Yeah, we've got a couple of these we disagree on, but one that feels fairly obvious to me, especially coming off a Super Bowl victory, the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC East. Now, I don't think necessarily they're going 15-2 again because that's very hard to do 2 years in a row, but they still have a loaded football team. They brought back, I believe it's 20 of their 25 leaders in snaps played. Their offense is terrific with this offensive line: Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley, Dallas Goedert. They're adding just everything that you want to add to an offense. John Dotson's back from last year as well. They've got everything offensively. They've got everything defensively with Vic Fangio calling it. I think the Commanders close the gap a little bit along with the Eagles creeping back, but I need to see Washington's defense start to play at a better level than they did, especially the second half of last year, before I can have them taking the throw. And I love the offense. It's the defensive side that worries me. I'm still taking the Eagles in the East. The North is funny because before the Micah Parsons trade, I was going to take the Lions. Now I think that tips the scales. I'm taking Green Bay to win this division. I think the bounce back from Jordan Love, and there needs to be a little bit of a bounce back, right? And I think Matthew Golden's going to help that. I've talked about that a lot, and they're still going to run the football a lot with Josh Jacobs. They got balance in their offense. They now have the premier pass rusher that they were missing. Trevor, when they sent 4 or less last year, they were the 5th worst pass rush team in football. This is the exact piece they needed, and you're playing against 3 teams in this division with completely reworked offensive lines, especially in the interior. Parsons, talent, talent and versatility, I think makes a huge difference now for this Green Bay defense. I'm taking the Packers now in the NFC North. I was in on the Lions. I'm still very high on the Lions, but I love the trade and what this brings to Green Bay. Down south, I'm taking your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think they're the most well-rounded team in this division. The Falcons are the next biggest threat to me. Got to see Penix for a full season, although I have a lot of faith in him, and I got to see this pass rush get better in Atlanta before I can have them take over. I think the Bucs got to get through the early season injuries, still have faith, especially in this offense, and they can get it done. And out west, I'm going with the Rams. I'm trusting Matthew Stafford's health here. The back injury is tough. The pass protection needs to be good, and it's probably going to be the same thing a lot this year, where what you saw last year and the biggest determinant of them winning games every week was their pass protection. If they can protect Stafford, they're going to be really good. Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, Tutu Atwell, multiple good tight ends, Kyron Williams, Blake Corum, Jarquez Hunter in the backfield. They've got a really darn dynamic offense, and then their pass rush with Jared Verse. He's one of the best players in the NFL. He's going to be a problem for everybody to block every week. So I'm taking the faith that Stafford hopefully plays, even if not 17, maybe 15 out of the 17 games. If he's healthy, I do think they're the best team in this division.
It's so hard, right? It's so hard to sort of predict where we're going to have the Los Angeles Rams in this list. And we agree on two of them. I think the Buccaneers and the Philadelphia Eagles are the two teams that are going to win their respective divisions. I have the Minnesota Vikings winning the AFC North. And I will say, this is quite literally anybody's division. And when I say that, I mean that in the best way. This is the best division in football. And there's most likely going to be one of these teams that is playoff caliber in who they are and where they could go that might not even make the playoffs, because these teams all have to play each other. And I have the Vikings because I'm such a big Kevin O'Connell fan. I also love what Brian Flores has done on the defensive side of the football. They increased two of the areas of their team last year that this was a 14-win team. And this is a team that was one of the best in the NFL, and yet they had issues on the interior defensive line and interior offensive line. They went out and they made big changes where I think that, again, if these teams, if the Vikings are fully healthy, which is always the, in parentheses caveat for every single team, but if this team is fully healthy, what J.J. McCarthy could be with Kevin O'Connell, to me, is once again having the Vikings as one of the best teams in the NFL. And I think two of their weaknesses they got even better with this offseason. So I am a big believer in the Minnesota Vikings. I think that Kevin O'Connell is one of the best coaches in the NFL, and I think that we're going to see that once again in their record. It's going to be tough because I thought about the Packers here, but really I sort of thought that the Lions were more of the team that I'm going to take away from, with the Packers becoming more competitive. I still think the Vikings are going to win this division. I could absolutely see the Packers winning it, but I ended up having the Packers as sort of the team that took that jump into the second place in the division, with the Lions kind of battling it out with the Chicago Bears, given all the coaching changes that they have. And well, I was going to talk about that a little bit more when we talk about the playoff picture, but I think the Lions are absolutely playoff caliber, right? One of the best offensive lines in the NFL. They've got great playmakers. Obviously, still have Jared Goff, one of the best running back rooms in the NFL. A really good secondary. The front, of course, if Aiden Hutchinson comes back and looks like Aiden Hutchinson from pre-injury, we're of course talking about a team that I think is probably going to be a playoff team. But I'm a little bit worried about how good Aiden Hutchinson looks right off the bat. I'd love for him to look the way that he did last year, but I just have a little bit of reservation. And then, to be honest with you, Dalton, I have reservation about them replacing both of their coordinators. These are two guys that were good enough to be head coaches in multiple head coaching cycles now, and I think that's a big deal. And I still think the Lions are going to be one of the toughest teams to beat every single week, but are they going to have that edge the way that they did with Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson, the way that they have the last couple of years, that they're not going to have this year? I'm a big coaching matters type of a guy, and I just have more question marks with the Lions, given the coaching changes that happen. So I still think it's going to be a really good team. I don't want this to come off as Lions slander, but I think this division is so competitive, so close. Ultimately, I have the Vikings coming out on top, and I have the Packers and the Bears actually as playoff teams in this division, which we'll get to in a second. And I have the Lions just missing out on the playoffs simply because they have the second hardest strength of schedule in the NFL. When you look at wins and losses from last season, of course, there's, people take strength of schedule with different weights. they're playing a lot of really good teams, specifically the ones in their division. Could the ball bounce their way and they get into the playoffs? Of course they can. They have the talent to be able to do that. But I think, unfortunately, somebody's going to miss the playoffs in that division. And I wonder if it's going to be the Lions with the changes at offensive and defensive coordinator. In the NFC West, I am worried about Matthew Stafford's long-term health, not just beyond this year, but even this year specifically. A back injury is so tricky, man, especially from what you said. The question mark with this team is up front. Now, if the guys can protect up front, Matthew Stafford's really not getting hit very often, obviously I feel a little bit better about this. But if he's scrambling more than he wants to, and if he's getting hit a little bit more than anybody's comfortable with, unfortunately, I just have my concerns. I don't love the fact that we went through this episode of, hey, he was supposed to be ready by this time. You kind of blew by that date of when we wanted to see him. And obviously, it's great to see him out on the practice field and for him to get out there anyways. But back injuries scare me, man. They really do, especially for a position that can take some awkward hits like the quarterback position. So all that to say, I'm a little bit skeptical about the Rams, and I love the Seahawks. I am such a big Seahawk believer on what Mike McDonald has done on that defensive side of the football, what he has up front on that defensive front, the speed at the second level, the potential of that secondary, how good it could be. I think the offensive line is certainly going to be a lot better, even with just the addition of Gray Zabel. If those offensive tackles and Abe Lucas and Charles Cross are healthy, I feel decent enough about this offensive line. Dynamic running back with Kenneth Walker, who I think is due for a bounce back year. And I just love the offensive coordinator. Again, going back to coaching, loved what I saw from Clint Kubiak last year when he was the offensive coordinator for the New Orleans Saints, how they're setting up the offense to do exactly what he wants to do with those outside run zone concepts and what he is going to dial up for Sam Darnold in the passing game. I like the pass catching weapons despite a lot of changes there. I still do like Cooper Kupp in the system. I like MVS in the system. I like Jackson Smith-Njigba. Torrey Horton, I think, could be an excellent addition there. Elijah Arroyo at the tight end spot is a really good receiver there. So I'm just a big fan of the Seattle Seahawks, and we talked about this when we were going over our preview show, that I like the Seahawks more than even PFF's projected win total model had them at. So big fan of them. I think they win the division this year with the uncertainty with Matthew Stafford's back.
If Seattle wins that division, Clint Kubiak is going to be one of the first guys everyone's calling to be their head coach next year, whoever's firing their coach this year. That's how good a job he'll have done with a super young offensive line, with Sam Darnold, with a whole new – I mean, it's an entire new offense, really, outside of the offensive tackles and the running backs, right? So if he does that, he's going to be a hot head coaching candidate. But I think the two divisions we disagree on here in the NFC, they were the two hardest ones to pick. The NFC North is wide open because they're all extremely good, and I think the NFC West is wide open because there's one big serious question about all four teams, right? I think out West, you're talking about the Rams with Stafford's health. You're talking about the Niners with the health of everybody, their entire team. The Cardinals, their strengths are solid, but Kyler Murray's inconsistent, and they have some injuries on defense already. And then you have Seattle with, to me, the offensive line, especially that young offensive line, still need to protect Darnold, new quarterback, everything like that. So you got teams out West with serious questions, I think. And the one that can answer those things and remedy those things the soonest in the season, and again, even last year, the Rams won the division, but you had the Rams and Seattle tied at 10-7 at the top. They won it on a tiebreaker. So it's a wide open division. There's a lot of people expecting a bounce back from San Fran, and there's a lot of exciting talent in Arizona. That may have been actually even more so the hardest division to pick, because at least in the NFC North, we got a pretty good idea of what these teams are, right? I still think the Bears need some work on defense, and I think it's going to take Caleb some time. And then the biggest question in the whole division really is J.J. McCarthy and just how he responds to being the starter and playing every week, right? If you have faith in that, then I absolutely get the case for Minnesota. If you don't think he's going to light the world on fire, and he doesn't have to light the world on fire for them to win games, I shouldn't even say that, but if you think it's going to be a big adjustment to him starting and him running this offense, then maybe you're not quite as high on Minnesota. So, I think there's a lot of variability in both divisions, and any of those teams can win either one.
Yeah, we talk a lot on this show, whether it's from a prediction or even a betting perspective on storylines, right? And I think that you're going to see my awards also reflect some of the storyline that I think is going to happen throughout the season. And I'm believing in J.J. McCarthy. I'm believing in that marriage between him and Kevin O'Connell. I think that that O'Connell is going to make things as simple as possible and as easy as possible throughout those first couple of games. And then as JJ gets more comfortable, I think they'll be able to open things up. And to be honest, I think they're going to have a phenomenal defense behind them where even if McCarthy's got this warm-up period, they're going to be in these games. And Kevin O'Connell alone, I think in how he game plans, is going to be a major strength and difference maker for this team to keep them in it and get them wins as JJ McCarthy is sort of becoming that best version of himself. And so I'm big into those two storylines. Like I'm big into the Texans and the Broncos storylines in the AFC. I'm big into the Vikings and the Seattle Seahawks storylines in the NFC. I just see you got to kind of take bets with the pro game and how small the margin for error is. And I see those teams as ones that could really emerge. So we're going to get into the full playoff picture for both the AFC and the NFC. Tell you what we think the final seeding is going to be, go through every single round, and then give you our Super Bowl champions in a second. But first, we got to talk to you about our friends over at ZipRecruiter. Hiring, it's so difficult, right? I mean, like you have a job that you're really excited about. You're excited to bring somebody onto the team, but it can often feel like a needle in a haystack, trying to find the right resume, trying to bring that resume to life, picturing that person as part of your team and as your organization. But with ZipRecruiter, they can help find amazing candidates for you fast. Right now, you can try it for free, ZipRecruiter.com/audio. And it is one of those situations where you're doing that. You're trying to bring a resume to life, and you're not just trying to say, okay, this person's got the right experience. They've done what we need them to do. It's a person that you want to help grow your company, right? I mean, you're hiring people as much as you are experience. And so that matters a ton as well. ZipRecruiter's smart technology identifies the top talent for those roles really quickly. Immediately after you post your job, ZipRecruiter's powerful matching technology starts showing you the most qualified people for it. Ditch the other hiring sites. Let ZipRecruiter find what you're looking for, that needle in the haystack. 4 to 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a qualified candidate within the first day. You can try it for free at this exclusive website, ZipRecruiter.com/audio. Again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/audio. ZipRecruiter, it's the smartest way to hire. All right, let's dig into it. AFC playoff picture. Give me your 1 through 7. Give me the seeds. And then let's start with the wild card round. Just get into the wild card round a little bit, and then I'll give you my 1 through 7, go through the wild card, and we'll sort of go round by round.
All right, here we go. Top seed, AFC North champion, Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson's in for another big year because at this point he's just unstoppable. And as long as this defense, especially the secondary, stays together the way it did the second half of last year, the Ravens really, to me, are a team you could argue has the highest floor in football with what they're bringing out there. I think Derrick Henry, obviously just ageless. We know how good he is, and even into his 30s, he's just not slowing down. He's just the exception to the rule. So Ravens 1. I've got Kansas City 2. I think even in a tough division, they're going to win enough games and find a way to win enough of those close games to get enough wins to get this second seed. The best situational football team in the NFL. I think that's a big factor. Number 3, the Buffalo Bills in the East. I love Josh Allen, obviously. Still shaky on their defense. The back 7 of their defense is still a problem, but they're the best team in that division. They're going to rack enough wins in that division. They're number 3. Number 4, the Houston Texans, the last division winner. Number 5, look, I'm with you on the Denver Broncos, man. They're really, really good. The defense could be the best in the NFL. I still question if they have enough receiving depth, and there's going to be young running backs. R.J. Harvey especially, I think, needs to have a big year for them to really take the next step on their offense. I know he's a rookie, but adding balance to that offense is going to be big. Number 6, I'm going to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going to stay in the North. It's more about the defense to me, and obviously the floor, and Mike Tomlin's streak will just never get broken. So they're going to win, I think, enough games. I think they're just as capable of accomplishing what they did last year. Maybe one playoff win. We'll get to that in a minute. But I think the Steelers are still really good. The Jalen Ramsey ad, the Darius Slay ad. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers are changing the offensive philosophy a bit. I'm a little worried if their offensive tackle situation is too shaky. If it's, Broderick Jones, Troy Fautanu. But the Steelers have a high floor. They have a great defense, and Rodgers won't have to do too much. And then number 7, I'm going with Cincinnati Bengals. And part of this, there was a couple other teams I thought about here, but part of this really is just they need to make the playoffs. They need to. And if you have a team with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and now they've signed Trey Hendrickson for one more year, you've got to make the playoffs. You just have to. You can't waste another year of Joe Burrow and getting almost 5,000, if not over 5,000 yards, and not be at least in the postseason. It just doesn't make sense at that point. If the Bengals don't make the playoffs, there's going to be big, I think, organizational level questions about this team, because look, the defense still isn't great, and it probably won't be great, but at least they re-signed Trey. They need Burrow, Higgins, and Chase all healthy for 17 games. If they do get that, I think they are good enough to sneak in.
So my 1 through 7, and I think that. Well, I'll just go off of your list for. I think the Steelers are a good shout out, right? I think that's the team that I don't have in mind that I think is a good shout out for yours. And I think that some people look at the Steelers and they're kind of tired of the Steelers. Like, they're either tired of the Pittsburgh Steelers or they're tired of Aaron Rodgers, so they're overlooking the Steelers team. This is still going to be a really good Steelers team. And you mentioned the offensive line and just the playmaking weapons outside of DK Metcalf are sort of the reasons why I have my reservations about this team, and I'm not so sure they're going to be a playoff team with some really stacked AFC teams at the very top, but I think they're still going to be right there, right? The Mike Tomlin tenure, we've all talked about it, how it's 500 at the very worst, and I do think that they are once again going to be really competitive, and if we get a fully healthy Aaron Rodgers, I think that it's going to be a nice season for the Steelers, so I could certainly see them sneaking in as a playoff team there. I don't think they're going to win the division, but I think they could be. I don't have them there. The way that I see it, I think the Buffalo Bills are going to be the number 1 seed in the NFL. I think that this team is, like, this is their year, in my opinion, to go out and win the Super Bowl. Like, I think that they are going to believe that. They're going to go through the regular season extremely focused. They're going to try to make sure that they get that 1 seed. They're going to make sure they're going to try to make sure that the playoffs always run through Buffalo, no matter what situation that they have this upcoming January and February. So I think the Bills are going to be the number 1 seed. I like the Broncos as the 2 seed. And I like the Broncos as the 2 seed, not necessarily because I think they're going to win like something crazy, 13, 14, 15 games, but simply because I think that the AFC is going to be a pretty even matchup between a lot of the best teams every single week. And so I could see the Broncos still emerging as one of those better teams, especially if they have one of the best defenses in the NFL. I told you I'm a big believer in the Houston Texans this year. I have them at number 3. And then I got the Baltimore Ravens at number 4. Now, do I think that the Baltimore Ravens are the 4th best team? No, but I do think that they're in for a lot of really tough matchups throughout the season. And, you know, you're dropping 1 or 2 losses here to some really good football teams. That doesn't make you any less talented, but it does show you how little the margin for error could be. So, like you said, you have the Ravens at the 1 seed. I have no disagreement with that. Here in this scenario, I went through playoffpredictor.com and I went through every single game of the season, and I just had the Ravens going back and forth with some of the best teams in the NFL. They ultimately got the 4 seed for me, but truth be told, the Ravens can finish basically anywhere within those teams that are going to win the division. I just think that they've got a really tough schedule this year. The Chiefs I have as the very first wild card team. I have them at number 5, so even though I don't have them winning the division, I still have them right there. I'm still a believer in the Chargers. Like I said, I'm leaning heavily into coaching staffs I know that are great. And I know that Jim Harbaugh on the offensive side of the ball, and just as the head coach, and Jesse Minter as their defense coordinator, are great. Does not having Rashawn Slater, is that bad? Yes, objectively. He's one of the best offensive tackles in football. But I still think the offensive line can be solid. I think Omarion Hampton's going to be great for them as a running back. They're going to have a more potent passing attack with much more than just Ladd McConkey to be able to throw the ball to. Justin Herbert's still a pretty damn good quarterback, even though people like to say that he's not. Playoffs might be a different story. I think the defense is going to be fantastic for them, as it always is. I think they're still a playoff team. And then I think the Bengals are going to come in at number 7 here for me because they're going to be one of the best offenses in the NFL. Now, am I worried about the defense? You better believe I'm worried about the defense in Cincinnati. And that's why I don't necessarily think they're going to contend for that division, but are they going to score enough points to be a playoff team? Yeah, I believe so. And I think that that's because they've got one of the best quarterbacks in the world, and it's going to be really tough, regardless of how the defense looks, to keep one of the best quarterbacks in the world playing in his prime outside of the playoffs. So a couple of different teams I could have thought about here with number 7, but ultimately I wanted to make sure that the Bengals got in there because I think they're going to score enough points for that to be the case. Wild card round. Give me your matchups and your winners here in the AFC.
All right, so it ends up being, we have a fun wild card round here. It starts with Patrick Mahomes versus Joe Burrow at Arrowhead in the first round, but I am taking the Chiefs. I think the Bengals, at the end of the day, they're just not well-rounded enough to make a deep run, right? You're talking about a team that's way too top-heavy. The offense, absolutely, it would be a dogfight. Anywhere Joe Burrow goes, especially in a playoff game, as ice-cold in his veins as he is, it's going to be a great football game, but I'm taking Kansas City over Cincinnati. I've got the Steelers Steelers traveling to Buffalo and losing to Buffalo. The Bills at home, absolute wagon as always, offensively, especially when they're playing games in Buffalo. I got the Bills over the Steelers, and then got the Broncos going on the road to beat the Houston Texans. I think the Texans' offensive line would be the thing that prevents them from making a deep run or winning a playoff game, or maybe more than that. I just think it would be actually a really bad matchup for them to play Denver and that defense in the first round of a wild card game. So I've got the Broncos going on the road to Houston and winning as the 5 seed.
In my wild card, I have the Ravens hosting the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Ravens getting over that Kansas City hump and beating the Chiefs there in the first round in the wild card. The Texans, in my seeding scenario, would face the Los Angeles Chargers, and I have the Texans over the Chargers there in that game and that rematch there. And then I have the Broncos over the Bengals. I think the Broncos are going to be hosting that game. It's going to be a defense that's going to have the ability to clamp down on one of the best offenses in the NFL. And I'm just not so sure that Cincinnati's defense is going to be able to go on the road and do the same. So I have the Ravens, the Texans, and the Broncos advancing in the wild card matchup. What about the divisional round? Who you got?
So that means in my divisional round, we've got Denver traveling to take on the Baltimore Ravens. I'm taking the Ravens as the home team, as the favorite. I just think the Broncos, and it's a good step for them if they were going to win a playoff game this year. It's another step in their development. I still think they're a couple of offensive pieces short of a Super Bowl run. They'll work on that next offseason, but after an excellent season, they go to Baltimore and they lose. So the Ravens are in the AFC title game. And then we get Chiefs and Bills again at Arrowhead, like it feels like we do every year. And I'm taking the Chiefs again in that matchup. I just don't trust this Bills defense. It's not Josh Allen. And everyone in this scenario, and I'm going to hate it when it comes up, they're all going to go, why can't Josh Allen get it done? Why can't he do it? What's wrong with him? He's not as good as... No, it's not that. I just think we're talking, especially, I don't like the injuries already. Maxwell Harrison is yet to play a snap, and I don't know when he's going to. He's on short-term IR. The cornerback situation, the safety situation, linebacker, they have guys, but I'm not as sure I need a bounce back from Matt Milano. I just think I get to these scenarios, and I just can't help but feel like it's the same old thing with the Bills. And it's not Josh Allen. I have every bit of faith in Josh Allen that he can win these types of games. And no question, top 4 quarterback, anywhere from 2 to 4 you want to put him is fine. But I just think this defense for the Bills, when is it going to show up for me in a big spot? Until they do, I'm taking the Chiefs. So I've got the Ravens and the Chiefs in my AFC title game.
I have 2 coin flip games that are tough. Ultimately, I went with the Houston Texans defeating the Denver Broncos in Denver, because Denver has the higher seed, but it's the 2 versus the 3 seed here. I think that the Texans, now the offensive line, obviously the offensive line's got to hold up. If we've still got question marks on the offensive line, I don't know what the Texans get here, but if the offensive line solidifies itself, it's a good defensive line they're certainly going up against, and it's going to be two of the best defenses in the NFL, in my opinion, if we get this matchup in the playoffs. But give me CJ Stroud. Give me CJ Stroud. I've got so much faith in him and what he could be this upcoming season. Love how he plays the position. Love how much he wants to be great. And for as much as I do think that Bo Nix is going to take that next step, can Bo Nix attack this Texans defense the way that CJ Stroud might be able to attack the Denver Broncos defense? I've got a little bit more faith in CJ Stroud in that regard. So I got the Texans over the Broncos, and then I have the Ravens over the Bills. I also have those question marks for the Bills defense for you. Bills coming up a little bit short once again of that AFC Championship game. I'm just such a believer in the Ravens this year. I really do think that it feels like it's destiny for one of those 2 teams. And whether they meet in the divisional round, the AFC Championship, whatever, I think that it is one of those 2 teams' years to get to the Super Bowl and even win the Super Bowl. So I think that the Ravens beat the Bills. I have the Ravens over the Bills just because I have less question marks about them on the defensive side of the football. And then your AFC Championship, who's going to the Super Bowl from this division?
We've got Kansas City traveling to Baltimore. As always, it's the monster that you have to either are the Chiefs or you have to beat the Chiefs to get to the Super Bowl in the AFC. I'm taking Baltimore to do it this year. At home, I say Lamar Jackson gets it done. Obviously it'll be a hell of a football game, and Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes will never go down easy. But I'm going to say in the AFC that Lamar Jackson finally gets it done. He's going to his first career Super Bowl. They are beating Kansas City at home.
I am with you. I agree. I have the Baltimore Ravens beating the Houston Texans. I think, again, the Texans are going to be one of the best defenses in the NFL. But Lamar Jackson is a one-of-one player. And I think that he is going to get over the hump. and he's going to get to play for a Super Bowl this year. So I've got the Ravens beating the Texans in the AFC Championship game. Brings us to the NFC. Tell me your 1 through 7 in the NFC.
All right, number 1, they might not go 15-2 again, but I still really believe in them, and I don't think they're going to be much lower than that. The Philadelphia Eagles are my top seed. I still think, even with the Packers adding Parsons and some other teams getting better, I still think the Eagles are the most complete team in the NFC. Just got to avoid the hangover and replace a couple of pieces on defense, but I feel good about them. Number 2, I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers, and I know it's a really tight division, and I'm telling you couldn't make a bigger impact move than adding Micah Parsons a week before the season.
Yeah,
right? And
you're damn right.
If you've got healthy Jordan Love for 17 games, if Matthew Golden hits as the deep threat and opens things up for everybody else, this offensive line's really good. The D-line's a lot better with Parsons. Jeff Hafley's so creative with his defense. Edgerrin Cooper at linebacker's a rising star. You know I love Xavier McKinney. The one question I have left for the Packers is the cornerbacks. When you're playing some of these teams with great receivers, Minnesota, Detroit, Philadelphia, is there somebody they could trade for, I wonder, mid-season, who could help them a lot at corner? Do I think about maybe, I don't know, a Denzel Ward from Cleveland or somebody like that? Who's a guy? Do they have a number 1 corner, a guy that they can go to against those types of receivers, right? So, but I got the Packers at 2. I'm gonna ride Matthew Stafford's health here and go the Rams at 3. I think the Rams are really, really good if Matthew Stafford's healthy. They're a serious threat. We saw that last year in that playoff game against Philadelphia. And then 4, your Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the last division winner. I do think getting through some of these early season injuries, Tristan Wirfs, Chris Godwin, we don't know if or when they'll have Jalen McMillan really at all this year. I know they have Emeka Ibuka, which is great, and he's obviously still a rookie. Rashad White's even hurt early. So the Bucs are dealing with some things early in the season, but I'll take them as the 4 seed. 5 seed, Detroit Lions. I think you could even still argue they're the second most talented team in the NFC. Second or third, obviously, Green Bay and the Rams are also very talented, but I believe in the Lions big time still. It's too much talent to miss the playoffs. 6, I'm going Washington Commanders. Jaden Daniels, obviously superstar. You know I love him more than anybody. The defense I have questions about, which is why I don't have them above Philadelphia in the division, but I think Jaden Daniels carries them to the playoffs again. And then 7, there was a ton of teams. I didn't even know what to do with this 7th spot, honestly, Trev. There was so many teams. Minnesota's hard to leave out. The Arizona Cardinals, I think, are very talented. I think there's even sleeper teams, like even the New York Giants. I think there's this scenario where you go, they could be in that race. I'm going to go with Michael Penix and the Atlanta Falcons. I think the offense could be very explosive. I don't love the Caleb McGarry being out for the season injury there. But if their pass rush is better, they were a solid team last year with a mess at quarterback with the way Kirk Cousins was playing. Michael Penix, I'm a big, big believer in. I'm telling him, Michael Penix and Drake London, I think, is going to be one of the best connections in football this year. I think it's going to be extremely wide open for these wild card spots. Somehow, I'll be picking between probably 5 or 6 teams. I landed on Atlanta. I'm a big believer in Penix, this offensive line, and Bijan Robinson as well.
There's a reason why, the week 14, 15, 16, 17, pre-game shows, they show like 10 teams that are still like all in a hunt for like the last 3 playoff positions as wildcard teams. It's because it is going to be really close. I agree with you in some of the ways, but I disagree with you in some other ones. We agree about the team at the very top, the Philadelphia Eagles, as the 1 seed. I don't quite think they're going to be as dominant as they were last year, but they are still, I think, the cream of the crop there in the NFC. I think they're the 1 seed. Number 2, the 2 seed here, I have the Minnesota Vikings. Now, because of how tough this division is, you could certainly say, like, all right, 3 or 4 or something. I just think the Vikings are going to be one of the best teams in the NFL, and they're going to win this division. So whatever win total that ends up looking like for them, 11, 12 wins, something like that. But if it's a little more, obviously, I think they could be the 2 seed there. The Buccaneers I have as a 3 seed. Should be one of the most potent offenses in the NFL with a good offensive line. Bucky Irving to hand the ball off to, obviously Baker Mayfield, and now a plethora of offensive weapons to throw the football to, starting off with the Emeka Ibuka and Mike Evans, and then they'll get Chris Godwin back at some point. Number 4, I have the Seattle Seahawks, the team in the NFC West that I think is winning that division. 5 is the Packers. I've got the Packers as the first wild card team. Certainly they're going to be in contention to potentially win the division and host a playoff game there. Like you have them as the 2 seed. I totally see where you're coming from. This team was really good in a lot of ways last year. And as long as the offensive line still continues to play well together with a little bit of changes that we saw this offseason, as long as Matthew Golden can kind of be that guy to really carry the explosive plays for them in the passing game, you feel good about Josh Jacobs. And now I think you feel a lot better about Jeff Hafley's defense, adding a guy like Micah Parsons. So I've got them as the 5 seed. Rams, like I told you, I don't know what to do with. I love this team. I love Sean McVay. I like that it's a bunch of young guys who played really well last year. They're a year older, a year wiser, if you will. But what is Matthew Stafford this upcoming season? I mean, we're kind of talking about him a little bit like we talk about Tua Tagovailoa and the Miami Dolphins. If you tell me that Tua is fully healthy the entire season, it's going to be a good offense, and the Miami Dolphins are going to win a lot of games this season. If you tell me the same about the Los Angeles Rams, I think they're going to be right there to potentially win this division when it's all said and done. But the unknown with health is worrisome to me, especially, like I said, with a back injury, because back injuries can be so tricky. Number 7, you talked about a plethora of teams that are there on the line to potentially make the playoffs. I think that the Commanders, the Lions, the Bears, and the Arizona Cardinals, and obviously the San Francisco 49ers. Again, I'm worried about how healthy that team is going to be throughout the entire season. When they are fully healthy, they're a damn good football team. Kyle Shanahan's one of the best coaches in the division. Ultimately, I went with the Chicago Bears. I'm believing in the Chicago Bears for Caleb Williams to be a 4,000-yard passer this year. I'm believing in them to make the playoffs because they are an incredibly talented team. They have a much improved offensive line. I think Caleb looked really confident in the preseason. With Ben Johnson now as his offensive play caller, I think they're going to score a lot of points, and I think it could be pretty aggressive with Dennis Allen there on the defensive side of the ball as well. So I've got the Bears as that last team with the 7th seed sneaking in, and I got the Detroit Lions, like I said, just barely missing the playoffs because of an incredibly tough schedule and the unknown of replacing 2 of your coordinators, which I think is something that is worth noting. And I don't think that it's just this like, yeah, but they're still the Detroit Lions. They're guaranteed to be good. I think they're going to be good, but how good? Obviously, and we talked about a very competitive NFC and a very competitive NFC North specifically. Wild card round. Who you got?
Wild card round, we've got Green Bay hosting Atlanta and getting a win. Again, I like where Atlanta's going this year, but going up to Green Bay in that situation, and I'm still not entirely sure that their pass rush, especially against Green Bay's offensive line, would get it done at Lambeau, so I'm taking the Packers over the Falcons. Well, I got a matchup that we almost had in the NFC title game last year. The Commanders going out to L.A. to play the Rams. I think Jaden Daniels goes out to L.A. and gets it done. I think it would be a high-scoring game. I think the pass rush on both sides would obviously be an issue. If the Commanders have one against the Rams offensive line, that would make things a lot better for them. But I'm going to take Jaden Daniels to win another playoff game this year out in LA over the Rams. And then I've got the Bucs playing the Lions down in Tampa. And I hate to tell you, Trev, but I'm actually going to take Detroit. They lost to the Lions in the playoffs 2 years ago in Detroit. I'm going to have the Lions going down to Tampa. Even though it's not cold weather and it's not adverse conditions and all of that, I got the Lions going down to Tampa beating the Buccaneers.
Sad. You hate to see that. The wild card round for me, I got the Packers going to Seattle, taking down the number 4 seed Seattle Seahawks. I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the Los Angeles Rams, getting some redemption from the Tom Brady playoff loss. And basically the same scenario with the Rams traveling to Tampa in that regard. And then I got the Minnesota Vikings over the Chicago Bears, Minnesota hosting that game, beating a familiar foe there in Minnesota to advance. Divisional round, who you got?
Divisional round, we've got a rematch of last year's NFC title game. The Eagles and Commanders once again in Philadelphia. And once again, I'm taking the Eagles. I love Jaden Daniels. The offense, I think, is going to be spectacular. Laramie Tunsil, Deebo Samuel. Obviously, we've got a new running back crew, but they know how to run the football, especially when they center it around Jaden Daniels. But I just think the Eagles are the more complete football team. I still have my questions about this Commanders defense. I still think the team is really good. The offense is great, but can they make enough stops in the postseason? It's their defensive line. The cornerback unit should be better, especially if you get a healthy Marshawn Lattimore. But I think in the trenches, there's still not quite where Philly is yet. I've got the Eagles over the Commanders again. And then we've got a matchup that would make probably both fan bases just implode. The Lions going to Green Bay to take on the Packers in the divisional round for the right to go to the NFC title game. I'm going to take the home team. I'm going to take the Green Bay Packers. I think Micah Parsons is that difference maker in that matchup. I've got the Eagles and Packers in the NFC title game.
I've got the Tampa Bay Vikings beating my Tampa Bay Buccaneers simply because Vikings are hosting this game. I think this could be a coin flip game. Could be a really good one. Todd Bowles going up against J.J. McCarthy. But the fact that this is in Minnesota, I've got the Vikings over the Buccaneers. And then I've got the Philadelphia Eagles over the Green Bay Packers. What a matchup that would be. I know you have that as your NFC Championship game. I have it here in the divisional round. And, two extremely talented football teams. That's going to be a fun game if we get that matchup, no matter where it is in the playoffs. But I know you have that as your NFC Championship game. Who you got winning that game?
Well, I'll tell you real quick, Vikings versus Buccaneers. That sounds like it should be a show on like History Channel or something, doesn't it?
It's very true. That's very
really
true.
should.
They're actually going to, me and you are actually going to do play-by-play in color for that game on Discovery Channel. I don't know if you knew that yet, but we're doing it for free. But I'm just letting you know that that's going to happen. So make sure you clear your schedule.
I probably would do that for free. The only thing is, I feel like we need to do it. Wait, would that game be in Tampa or in Minnesota? Oh, it'd be in Minnesota.
That game would be in Minnesota. No,
we'd have to do it from the boat if the game was in Tampa.
I was gonna say it's actually, you remember many years ago when they played that college basketball game on that airship carrier.
Oh yeah.
Now, so instead now they're going to build a giant Viking or pirate ship. I guess it would have to be a Viking ship for the home field advantage, and they're actually just going to play at sea. That's what they're going to. This game's going to be played at sea, and me and you are going to be on the ship to do play-by-play for this game.
That's fantastic. Would they still have cannons that fire off on the ship though? That would work.
They would. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Actually, there would be a live sea battle that would be going on as well. So the ship would be taking on somebody else as well. Yeah.
Oh, in that scenario, there's no chance I would pick against Baker Mayfield. That's absolutely a game he would win. No question. I
like that answer. No matter how we got here, I like that answer.
Anyway, what did we have? NFC title game for me? Right?
NFC title game, yes.
All right, so we've got Philadelphia and Green Bay. It's the Reggie White Bowl in theory, right? But I still think the Packers might be one tiny step away or just one more year of development away. I'm going to take Philadelphia to go to the Super Bowl for the second straight year. I do think they're the most complete team. Stay healthy. The one thing I worry about with Philly is just the number of touches Saquon Barkley got last year. Mm-hmm. I don't think, including playoffs, he's going to run for almost 2,500 yards again. I don't think. But you never know with that offensive line, and maybe Saquon's a freak like Derrick Henry, and he's just never going to wear out. I do worry about the volume a little bit, and if they have any complementary pieces. They have A.J. Dillon, they have Will Shipley, but can they lighten the load on him maybe early in the season so he's ready for these playoff runs? But I'm going to take Philadelphia to repeat as NFC champions.
I have the Minnesota Vikings over the Philadelphia Eagles here in this game. Now, this really would come down to, is J.J. McCarthy ready for it? Right? Is J.J. McCarthy ready to go into Philadelphia in the NFC Championship and knock off the Super Bowl champions? I think it's easy to say that he wouldn't be. But again, I think that Kevin O'Connell instilling that kind of confidence in quarterbacks is a big deal. And I think that Sam Darnold certainly unraveled towards the end of the year in that final game of the regular season and in the playoffs. I would love for J.J. McCarthy to not be like that because I don't want to see any player like that. And let's just say that if they get to that point, he's got the confidence to be able to get over the hump. That could be either of these teams, but I'll switch it up. I'll have the Minnesota Vikings because I do think that this could be one of the best teams in the NFL. I love what they have at basically every position. Now, they still got to get things figured out at corner. I think they got talent at corner, but they still got to get things figured out there. But if you believe in J.J. McCarthy, I think that you believe that this could be a team to make it to the Super Bowl, and I will have them going to the Super Bowl, which means my matchup for the Super Bowl is Ravens-Vikings. I had the Baltimore Ravens beating the Minnesota Vikings here in the Super Bowl. Lamar getting that Super Bowl, the Ravens being the best team in the NFL. They have been one of the best teams in the NFL over the last 3 years, I would say. And now they are going to get their chance to get that Super Bowl trophy, and here I have them beating the Minnesota Vikings to do just that. What about you? I know you got Ravens, Eagles. Who do you have winning?
Ravens, Eagles. What a matchup. So much talent on one field. And I'll say this. I do think the Eagles have enough talent, and they are fully capable of repeating this year. But I'm with you. I think Lamar Jackson gets it done. I think I'm taking Ravens over Eagles. And I know, look, last year, the Chiefs in that Super Bowl, they just weren't explosive enough to get through the cracks in that defense. And really, last year, there weren't any cracks in that Eagles defense. There's nobody more explosive than Lamar Jackson. We know this. He's arguably, you could argue at any given moment he's the best player in football. The dual threat ability, the ability to run right through anybody with Derrick Henry in the backfield. As well, the receiving core is obviously getting better each year. Zay Flowers getting better. Rashad Bateman. Now you add DeAndre Hopkins, Mark Andrews. Isaiah Likely's got the early injury, but he'll be back by then. It's a loaded football team. And I think it's just, you look at the Ravens and even the Bills and the Bengals the same way, and you go, you got to do it at some point. You have to. So I'll take them also to do it this year over a very, very talented Philadelphia team. I still think the Eagles are absolutely loaded, but we'll call it the year of destiny for Lamar Jackson.
All right, so we both got Lamar winning the Super Bowl this season. We're going to talk about some season awards here in a second. MVP, Offensive and Defensive Player, and Rookie of the Year, all that good stuff. But before we get to that, parenting. It's filled with all sorts of high-pressure decisions. like picking NFL winners here. No, okay, parenting is a little bit more high-pressure decision than that. It can be difficult to tell if we're making the right choices for our kids' future. But here's a simple decision that you can make today that can have a meaningful impact on your kids' future. That's opening up a UGMA Kids Investment Account from Fabric to start in their investment journeys early and give them that financial head start. Fabric by Gerber Life was designed by parents for parents to make it easy to plan for and manage your family's financial path. With a kids investment account from Fabric, you can start investing in your child's future today. Kids can't invest while they're minors, but this UGMA account allows you to invest on their behalf and gives their investments so much more time to grow. The whole thing is online. Setting up an account, it could take you as little as just 5 minutes. Getting started with just $1 a day, and then you manage your child's account and monitor those investments right from your phone. The funds can be used for anything, really benefiting your child when they're a little bit younger. Maybe it's tuition, it's books, it's summer camps, it's after-school activities, things like that. And then when they're adults, maybe you are helping them buy their first car, first house, start a business, whatever that looks like. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family. Start investing in your child today at meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. That's meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. The portfolios are managed by Fort Washington Investment Advisors Incorporated. Additional services provided by Apex Clearing Corporation. All investing is subject to risk. You can learn more at meetfabric.com. Okay, let's just run through all these awards, and then we'll have a good conversation about it. MVP all the way through, Coach of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year. Let's hear it, Dalton. How do you think this season?
All right, we're going all at once. That sounds good. All right, MVP for me, I'm sure you're going to be the least surprised person in the world on this, and I was between the two former LSU quarterbacks, Jayden Daniels and Joe Burrow. I'm going with Jayden Daniels in year two. I don't see the sophomore slump coming. He's just spectacular. Led the NFL in turnover-worthy play rate last year. You know the floor is there. He's the center of their running game. He's a dynamic player on the ground. He's a super accurate passer. And now he's got Deebo Samuel. He's got a primetime left tackle and Laramie Tunsil. And look, Daniels is going to have to be their MVP again, as he was their team MVP last year, because I still have my reservations about this defense. And this offense is going to carry this team, I think. And I know there's some good pieces defensively. Wagner, Luvo, I think the middle of the defense is getting better. But I think there's still questions. I still think the Commanders are going to be in a lot of high-scoring games. And I think Daniels is going to be that guy that carries them. Offensive Player of the Year. Let's go to Atlanta. Bijan Robinson, I think, is in for a monster year. When you talk about Michael Penix and his arm strength opening up defenses, making them sit back more, Bijan Robinson's behind a great offensive line. The one thing that worries me with this now, again, is the Caleb McGarry season-ending injury there at right tackle. That is a problem, but I think Robinson's talented enough to get through it. I think he was destined to go down this path. He was taken 8th overall for this very reason, because he had the capability of doing this. He can catch footballs, too, out of the backfield. Spectacular football player. I think he has a monster year ahead of him right now. Defensive Player of the Year. I was between two guys. After this trade, and almost for the vibe of it, I almost switched this pick to Micah Parsons. I almost did it. It would be almost fitting after that trade, and honestly as universally panned as it was on the Dallas side, for Parsons now to go over and win it in Green Bay. But I'm going to stick with my original pick. I'm going to go to Houston. Give me cornerback Derek Stingley Jr. I think when you talk about the top 3 or 4 cornerbacks in the NFL, I think there's 4 guys. I think it's 4 guys you talk about: Sauce Gardner, Pat Surtain, Trent McDuffie, and Derek Stingley. I think those are, in some order, the top 4. And I think Stingley, this Texans pass defense is so good. I'll tell you what, if they can pass protect and if they can get leads on teams, you do not want to fall behind the Houston Texans, because you end up having to either throw at Derek Stingley or Kamari Lassiter. And Stingley, man, I wouldn't even throw it in his direction, but if teams keep doing it, he might lead the NFL in interceptions. I'm going to take Derek Stingley. Offensive Rookie of the Year, I'm going chalk here. Give me Ashton Jeanty from the Raiders. I think he's special. You know me. I thought he was one of the best 4 football players in this last draft. He drops a 6 to the Raiders. Good offensive line. Good passing game with Geno Smith in there. I think Jinty's going to catch more balls than he did at Boise State. Chip Kelly's going to want to run the football. And the only competition for carries is Raheem Mostert. So I think Jinty's getting the heavy lion's share of the carries in Vegas. Going chalk there. I'm going chalk on the defensive side, also a defensive Rookie of the Year. Abdul Carter. This guy's special. I mean, he's going to line up all over the place. It's the same role as Micah Parsons, where you can put him anywhere you want, and he's going to rush the passer. And with Dexter Lawrence and Abdul Carter and Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau all rushing the passer at the same time, you're going to double team the rookie out of all those guys, and I know he's a great rookie, but is that what you're going to do if you're an opposing offensive group? You're going to, in your pass, when you set pass protections, you're going to set it to the rookie among that group? I don't think so, at least not yet, unless we get later in the season and he's just clearly the best one somehow. And even then, that means he's winning Defensive Rookie of the Year. So I'm going to take Abdul Carter. Coach of the Year, this was a hard one because in my playoff field, I didn't have a ton of teams that really shattered expectations, and a lot of times that's where it goes. So I went with John Harbaugh in Baltimore. I think if they have the best record in the NFL, he'll be in consideration for it, get that 1 seed, be the top team in a loaded AFC. And then comeback player of the year is a guy who was on his way to a historic year last season in Detroit. Give me Aiden Hutchinson. I just so hope that this guy comes back 100% and we see even something close to what honestly, not just comeback player of the year, what we saw last year through 5 games, he was going to win defensive player of the year. No question about it. He was the best defensive player in football. Even if he's 85% of what he was last year, that's a top 5 pass rusher in the NFL. I'll take Aiden Hutchinson in Detroit. I think he changes the nature of that entire defense.
Okay, so like I said, my awards are going to reflect, obviously, the storyline of sort of how I thought that these teams are going to go, which means for MVP, my favorite bet this season is actually CJ Stroud. Because if the Houston Texans end up being the 2nd or 3rd seed, they don't even need to be the 1 seed. Now, of course, like if Lamar ends up being the 1 seed and, either Lamar or Josh Allen, like if they're running away with it and they're winning their team's winning 15 games, they're probably going to win MVP. But to be honest with you, my favorite bet right now is CJ Stroud to win MVP because it's at least the last time I looked, it was over 2,000. I believe it was 20 plus 2,500 for that to be the case. And I believe the Houston Texans are going to be really good. So if they're going to be really good, if this is a team that's winning 12, 13 games, they're the 2nd or 3rd seed in the conference like I have them, you're going to look at CJ Stroud. You're going to look at what this offense is with him, and I think that he's got a chance to win MVP there. Now, obviously, there's a lot of great players that you could bring up in that conversation, but my favorite bet, the one that I like to make the most here preseason, is for CJ Stroud to win MVP because I like those odds that he has. Obviously, I am a Minnesota Vikings believer as well. I think they're not only going to make the playoffs and win that division, but I think they're going to make a deep playoff run. If that's going to be the case, they're going to do it through Justin Jefferson, right? I mean, Justin Jefferson has been somebody who has been an offensive player of the year caliber player basically every single season that he has been in the NFL. He's elite receiving grades in all 4 seasons, I believe, and he's just unstoppable. And when they are running the offense through him, it not only is the production there, the volume overall is as well, and we know how big of a superstar this is. And to win this award, you got to have hype with you as well, right? The public's got to know who you are, and I think that Justin Jefferson certainly has the backing of the public as one of the most electric offensive players in the NFL, which also brings me to my defensive player of the year. And it's funny because you said Derek Stingley Jr., I have his teammate. I think Will Anderson Jr. can win Defensive Player of the Year this year, and I like his odds as well. Finished with 7 sacks his rookie season, 11 sacks last year, above 17% pass rush win percentage in both of those seasons, and he is somebody who impacts the game in so many different ways. His coverage grade as a coverage dropping outside linebacker type of edge rusher is also good. And so when you, again, like hype and notoriety goes into these awards, you have to have the statistics, which I like anyways, because the public, or the voters, I should say, love to lean on guys who get a lot of sacks because it's very easy to point to that and just say like, hey, he was a really productive player. Not only do I think that Will Anderson Jr. is taking that next step this upcoming season, but I believe that every big game the Houston Texans are in, you are going to hear the broadcasters mention, oh my gosh, look at how much the coaches love this guy. He's not just a pass rusher. He's great in run defense as well, and his PFF grades reflected that, not just at Alabama, but also in his first 2 years in the NFL. I think the best is yet to come for Will Anderson. I think that we see that this upcoming season. And again, if this team is a 2nd or 3rd seed type of team, if they have that type of year, you better believe that Will Anderson's going to be somebody on that defense that they're going to point to every single week to talk about why this team is so good and that defense is so good. So CJ Stroud MVP, Justin Jefferson Offensive Player of the Year, Will Anderson Defensive Player of the Year, Offensive and Defensive Rookie of the Year, we have the same. We're going chalk. It's so hard not to. If I'm going to go with anybody who's not Ashton Genty, I mean, maybe Omarion Hampton for how much I think that he could get a lot of volume depending on how Najee Harris looks for this team. I mean, Omarion Hampton could look great for the Chargers, but how are you not picking Ashton Genty, right? I mean, it's just he's going to get so many carries. He's going to be such a big part of the Raiders offense. And again, those sneaky games that the Raiders win this year, yeah, I think that Geno Smith is going to be a big reason why, but you better believe that it's also going to be Ashton Genty and Abdul Carter. He's just a freak of nature when it comes to how he can beat an offensive lineman and get into the backfield. And you talked about how good this defensive line is for the New York Giants. And what are they going to double team the rookie? They're not going to double team him to start the season, certainly. So the first half of the season, if he starts out on fire, then I love his chances to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. Again, storylines, themes, Coach of the Year, Sean Payton for me. If the Denver Broncos are winning 11, 12 games this upcoming season, if they are dethroning the Kansas City Chiefs, to me, it might not even matter where they finish when it comes to overall seeding. Even if they do that and they are the 4th seed and they look like a really damn good football team with one of the best defenses in the NFL, and if Bo Nix specifically looks even better this upcoming season, Sean Payton's going to get a ton of credit for that. And I really do think that if they can dethrone the Chiefs, win that division, and be one of those top 4 seeds in the AFC, Sean Payton's got a good chance to win Coach of the Year there. Comeback Player of the Year, you mentioned Aiden Hutchinson. Obviously, if he hits the ground running for what we saw last season, you're right. I don't think anybody's going to have a chance. But with me believing in the Minnesota Vikings so much, J.J. McCarthy obviously coming off injury as well from last year. We did not get to see him. I think he is then in that conversation for missing all of that time in his rookie season. So I will go with J.J. McCarthy as my comeback player of the year. Because if I believe that the Minnesota Vikings are going to win that division and go on a deep playoff run, obviously he's going to be somebody who's going to stuff the ballots for that award.
Yeah, I think the most intriguing award to me, actually, out of all these is probably Defensive Player of the Year, because there's just so many options. Micah Parsons, Hutchinson's capable of it. Myles Garrett's always capable of it. I think about, certain guys like, even a Trent McDuffie. You never know when he could win. Jared Verse is a guy in year 2 who you could consider if he gets a higher sack total and really gets that name recognition. I mean, there's so many guys in Defensive Player of the Year that are obviously capable of winning it. And then I think just to mention some of the other rookies that could be Rookie of the Year candidates. I think on the offensive side, you obviously look at Cam Ward in Tennessee. You look at Teteroa McMillan in Carolina. I think R.J. Harvey for the Denver Broncos is a sleeper if he gets enough carries there. I think Tyler Warren with the Colts and what we saw in the preseason. I know we didn't get Brock Bowers winning it last year, if only because Jaden Daniels had such a great year. But Tyler Warren's a guy who could put up some numbers with the Colts. And then defensive sides, it's very interesting. If it's, if you get in a scenario where it's not Abdul Carter, who's the next few guys you look at, Trevor? Is it maybe Jahdae Barron with Denver? I think James Pierce Jr. is a big-time sleeper considering what we've seen from him this preseason for Atlanta, and he's going to have a role rushing the passer in Atlanta. That maybe goes for Jalen Walker as well down there with the Falcons. I think you have a lot of really good candidates. Will Johnson, a second-round pick, is starting for Arizona. Maybe he hits the ground running. So I think these Rookie of the Year races, we do have a clear favorite, but we just got to keep in mind that the clear favorites very, very often don't win, right? And just a handful of other names to look at there.
The chat is rightfully calling out that we didn't do what's the official award? Protector of the Year? Like what's the offensive lineman? We got to get that one in there because that one's new this year.
Let's do it on the spot then. Let's do it on the spot right now. Who you got?
I think they're going to give it to Lane, and I don't mean to say it that like Lane wouldn't be deserving of the award at all whatsoever, but like for the career that Lane Johnson has had, I once again think that he is going to be one of the best offensive tackles, the best right tackle in the NFL this upcoming season. I get Penei Sewell is going to give him a run for his money, but I feel like we're going to see a status quo, elite, phenomenal season from Lane Johnson. And I think for the career that he has had, knowing that he doesn't have many years left, if he has a Lane Johnson type of a season, I think that Lane Johnson's going to get the award as the first. What is it like offensive? I can't remember what the official title is.
I think it's I think it's Protector of the Year, which
is just an elite.
I think it's really. The award is meant for the offensive lineman of the year, but Protector of the Year makes it sound like it's only pass protection. So I don't know if you're protecting running backs too, I guess, in the run game. So that's
true. That's true. You're protecting your ability to win a Super Bowl. Maybe I'm going with Lane Johnson. Who are you going with?
Do we think? Here's the thing with this award, because how these things go. Like a lot of times, like edge rushers with sacks and stuff more often win Defensive Player of the Year and things like. Do we think there's going to be an offensive tackle bias to this? Do you think I have to pick a tackle?
Yes. I think the first year there's going to be offensive tackle bias. I think
because the amount that I want to say Creed Humphrey is killing me. But would they dare pick us? Even though he's clearly the best center in football, would they dare pick a center for this award in year one, especially?
I think the Chiefs would have to repeat and be one of like the number 1 or number 2 seed for them to pick Creed. You know what I'm saying? Because there's just unfortunately. And now I'm hoping any voters of this award out there, you better get yourself a PFF Plus subscription. That's all I'm saying, because you don't have a lot of you don't have common stats to go off of when it comes to judging offensive line play. So it kind of just depends on what their sources are. Because I unfortunately feel as though a lot of voters out there might just sort of look at the best teams in the NFL and they go, okay, who's on those offensive lines? And they might just lean towards the offensive tackles because they're talked a lot about, right? So even though I think that Creed is one of the best offensive linemen in the NFL, regardless of position, are they going to pick Creed if the Chiefs aren't, the 1 or the 2 seed? I don't know. I feel like they're going to lean offensive tackle.
Okay, then here's where I'm going to go with this. If he wasn't missing the first 3-4 games of the season, I would probably pick Tristan Wirfs. I'm instead gonna go with Lane Johnson's teammate. I'll go Jordan Mailata on the other side. He was the highest graded offensive lineman in football last year. If they're riding our stats and they're sticking with tackles, Jordan Mailata.
Pixel in the chat saying Joe Alt. Sleeper.
That's a sleeper. Love that. Especially moving the publicity of two guys I would also think about. The publicity of Alt moving to the left side. That's a great sleeper. And I don't know if there's betting odds on this, but we'd have to look at it. The other guy, too, because it's going to get talked about a ton, Laramie Tunsil.
Ooh, yeah. I didn't even think of Tunsil.
Going to that offense and all the hype about, okay, the Commanders have a lockdown left tackle and Laramie Tunsil. I think he still had, the 4th best pass blocking grade in the league last year? He's still an elite pass protector. I
unfortunately think that teams' win-loss record is going to go a long way into this award. And if at least for the first time out, it shouldn't be like that. But if you think that the Commanders can win the division, or if you think like last year the Commanders are just one of the best wild card teams in the NFL and they look phenomenal and the offense looks phenomenal, then I could see that. I could see Laramie Tunsil because every time that people are going to talk about Jaden Daniels, they're going to talk about Laramie Tunsil. If the Commanders offense is fantastic and they're winning a lot of football games and they're one of the best teams in that conference. But that's my thoughts on the award right out of the gate. That's what I think. I think Tunsil's a good shout.
I think we got to do it they probably need to put in eventually like they have the Joe Moore Award in college. Just do a whole unit. Do the offensive line of the year. They should probably just do it.
I mean, look, we should do individual offensive lineman of the year, and then we should do an overall offensive line. Why not?
I'm in.
Why not?
I'm all in.
I don't hate.
I know Howie Roseman would try to win it every single year. That'd be his goal, maybe more than winning a Super Bowl. Honestly,
what are you acting like he's not already?
I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, if he would have won it last year, shoot,
he would have won it last year. QJ with the $5 super chat. Appreciate you, QJ. I know QJ's a big Carolina Panthers fan. We did not talk about the Carolina Panthers very much here on this show. I think collectively, I don't want to speak for you, think that the Panthers are at least a year away, but I certainly think that 2026. We're going to be talking about the Falcons, the Panthers. They're going to be competitive with the Bucs at the top of that division. But he says in his super chat, my Panthers will be 12-5. Bryce Young, 9, wins MVP. Canales, Coach of the Year. Ted McMillan, Offensive Rookie of the Year. Hashtag keep pounding. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and let me tell you, I would enjoy that because the city would just be insane for the Carolina Panthers. And I'll tell you, Panthers fans are ready for this team to be really competitive again. So I'll tell you, the second the Panthers really start to show legitimate life, you're going to see the Panthers fan base really come alive again. So QJ, I don't know if we agree with it, but it's bold and you're sticking for your team. And that I can respect, my friend. What do you think about Carolina this year, real quick?
12 is a lot, and if they did go 12-5, and I would assume they'd win that division at that point, then they're going to get certainly Canales is going to win that award. And
yes,
and probably.
Yes,
I think the next most likely one would be Tetero McMillan with Offensive Rookie of the Year. But it's the defense that's the question. But I do like Carolina. I do think they're not a team to be messed around with in that division. And if they found a way to make that defense significantly better, because again, this was easily the worst defense in football last year. If they even got that to a scenario with Bryce Young playing the way he played the second half of last year, if they got the last ranked defense last year up to even like 18th or 20th, the level of difference that would make for that team just to keep them in games, that is a big difference. And that's where you start to talk about, look, we both have Tampa Bay winning the division. I like the Falcons a lot, especially offensively, but they're not so far better than the Panthers that it's unreachable. They just need Bryce Young to keep playing with confidence, and they need that front seven, and they need Derek Brown to be healthy. If that run defense is better around Derek Brown, you start to talk about some of these sorts of things.
All right, save the best for last, our favorite future bets of the season. This PFF betting segment is brought to you by our friends over at DraftKings. You can see these odds over the DraftKings Sportsbook app. The future bet that I like a lot, and we talked about this with me having the Bears just sneaking in there with that 7 seed in the NFC. I like Caleb Williams passing yard over. So Caleb Williams over 3,650.5 passing yards this season. The odds are plus 105 over on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Now, of course, the odds can change, so just letting you guys know. But I am a Caleb Williams believer with Ben Johnson. Maybe I should just say I'm a Ben Johnson believer, because this whole show, I've been talking about how much I am really leaning into the coaches I know are good at coaching. Ben Johnson, one of the best in the NFL over the last 3 to 4 seasons as offensive coordinator with the Detroit Lions. And I've gone over this before. If you look at the last 3 seasons in which he has been the offensive play caller or just someone involved in the offensive choices, the pass game coordinator, Jared Goff has gone over the 4,000-yard mark as a passer all 3 seasons. They have been top 10, if not top 5, in EPA per pass and total points scored in each of those seasons as well. So I love Caleb Williams having his best year this upcoming season. I think that is in the cards for him. I'm a big believer in Ben Johnson. What about you, Dalton? What is your favorite future bet that we have here?
I'm actually gonna give you 2. You know what? I gave the producers only 1, and I'm gonna do that first. But there was a second one that popped in my head that I really like. But here's the first one. I told you I just would not pick against the Kansas City Chiefs to win the AFC West. They're in basically until further notice. A situation for me. It's the same way it used to be with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick in New England. I would rather pick the Chiefs to win the division every year and wait to be wrong, and maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm scared. Than pick another team and then just have the Chiefs win it again and go, shoot, I should have just picked the Chiefs. Okay, and now minus 115, it's the favorite. It's not like super prohibitive. Like the Bills, I feel the same way about in the East, but when I looked at the Bills, they're minus 330. So there's no value in that. Minus 115 is really a more solid value between the two. I just think you can't pick against the Chiefs. I love Denver, and the Chargers are good, and I love the improvements the Raiders have made. But as long as Patrick Mahomes is there, and as long as Andy Reid is there, I'm picking the Chiefs every year. You could ask me, hey, who's going to win the division in 26? Unless Andy Reid retires, I'm picking the Chiefs. That's where I'm going. My second bonus one that I am just throwing in here now because it popped in my head on the way here. I absolutely love the year that I think Drake London's going to tee off this year. I would go over. Drake London's receiving prop is 1,125.5 yards. I think that's slamming. I think there's at least a chance that Drake London could lead the league in receiving this year. The target share and the chemistry that he has with Michael Penix as the quarterback now, and the ability for the Falcons to throw the ball downfield, that would be, if I was throwing a second bonus bet in there, I like a Drake London over this year. And obviously I had Bijan Robinson as my offensive player of the year, but I also think Drake London's about to go crazy.
Yeah, look, I mean, he's going to have 0 catches for 0 yards in at least 2 games this year when he faces off against Todd Bowles and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. But other than that, I do agree with you that Drake London's going to have a fantastic year. When we were doing some of the fantasy shows, I was talking with Nathan Yonke about how much I believed in Drake London and the year that he could have. I mean, you got to love how Michael Penix ended the year last year and how he just made Drake London his go-to guy. We get 17 games of that. You got to feel pretty good about it.
I have people in my fantasy league texting me as we're doing this, and I was upset. We did our draft last night, and I missed out on Drake London in the second round by 1 pick. I was very mad. I had Puka Nacua instead, which I can live with that too if Stafford's healthy. But I wanted Drake London in the worst way. I missed him by 1 pick. Feels bad.
You guys can see all those odds over at DraftKings Sportsbook on the app. Obviously, those lines that we talked about there are subject to change. And hey, look, everybody loves a good parlay, right? Don't let one bad leg haunt your parlays this upcoming season. Parlays turn into payouts, and now even near misses won't haunt your bets. The NFL season is here. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is rewriting the rules with ghost leg parlays, a new game-changing promotion that turns close calls into cold hard cash. Best of all, it is available to all DraftKings customers. Here's how it works. You build any 3+ leg pregame NFL parlay on Sunday, apply your ghost leg token, and if one of those legs loses, DraftKings makes it vanish like it never existed and pays you out in cash for the rest. Last season, over 30 million parlays were lost by a single leg. Whew, I had a couple of them. This year, Ghost Leg gives those busted bets a second life. I have a very fun group chat where me and 6 other friends, we will each pick one game of the upcoming slate to bet on, and we pool it in as a group parlay. And my goodness, it is so much fun. It is so exhilarating to be able to watch each game and kind of have some rooting interest in whatever's going to happen. And it's a great time. It's a great time to be able to do that with your friends. If you have the opportunity to do that, it is a really good time. I really do enjoy it. And I will say, one of the ones that we hit last year was on the Jaden Daniels Hail Mary. And what an exhilarating feeling, let me tell you. Download the DraftKings, or actually, there's no more busted parlays to haunt your season. Just got to make sure that you guys know that with Ghost Leg. Again, that's what it's called. The bad leg vanishes, the payout doesn't. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use the promo code PFF. That's promo code PFF to unlock the Ghost Leg, the promotion that makes one bad leg disappear and pays out in real cash. Ghost your losses, get your payout. In partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. If you guys got a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or just text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problems with gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. Fees may apply in Illinois. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Opt in for single-use token. Minimum 3+ legs and minus 500 odds per leg. Max bet varies. If only one leg of the bet loses, the bet will settle as if only the winning legs were placed and pays out in cash based on odds when the bet was placed. See terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. And with that, folks, the season is officially underway. Very excited for Cowboys-Eagles coming up here on Thursday Night Football to get the season kicked off. We are going to be here with you wire to wire throughout the entire NFL season, from game 1 of Thursday Night Football all the way through the Super Bowl. If you guys aren't subscribed to the channel, please do so. We would love to have you rocking with us for every single live show and in the comments as we get to talk about your favorite teams and so much more all season long. If you don't have a PFF Plus subscription, you can see all of the info and data and everything that we're going to be talking about throughout the season. You guys can see that yourself. We got a really cool schedule that we're really excited about here to cover the league as best we possibly can every single week. We're going to have the film reviews. We're obviously going to have the grade release show starting a week from today. We're going to have the preview show for you on Wednesday. We're going to have some former players give their analysis on what's happening throughout the NFL, and so much more. Really pumped for it. For Dalton Wasserman, I'm Trevor Sikkema saying thank you guys so much for watching this episode of the PFF NFL show. We will see you guys for the first preview show on Wednesday. See you guys then.